Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Spirit Cafe. I am thrilled. I'm overjoyed. I'm so excited to bring to you my compatriot of compassion, the amigo of fine attitude, the lovely, the powerful Miss Tamara Zoner. Hello, Tamara Zoner. Let's get ready to rumble.
Hello, the very dramatic John Davis.
Well, the last episode, I didn't have a good introduction for you, so I had to come up with something on the fly on this one.
Thanks for stepping it up, man. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Those intros.
I actually
that rumble's supposed to last a really long time, but listeners, you would get bored and you would leave.
Yeah, totally. Oh, don't worry, I'll loop it underneath the entire episode. So rumble. So Tamara Zoner, community, spiritual community, finding a place where you fit in. How important is community in a spiritual path or in life path in general?
I'm going to go with life path for 500, John. So let's start there. It's very important for life. It's very important. It's one of the 7 main aspects of happiness that I teach is about your relationships, right? Community. It's really important because we are an interactive, interconnected species, that we have community with others, that we have a support system, people to rely on, people to help, right? To be of service to and to receive service from, to lean on. That community is so important. And anybody who's ever felt lonely in their life knows how vital it can be to have somebody, at least one person, to lean on and connect with. And so, and even research shows that if you have 3 to 5 close friendships, it's even more mentally beneficial for you and emotionally beneficial for you than just a large group of people, right? So it matters. Community matters in that way. Now, as someone who has walked away from the church and that built-in religious community or spiritual community, for a long time, I didn't feel any kind of spiritual connection. And that's lonely. That can feel lonely, right? You cultivate that connection with your source, the yada, yada, if you will. And that feels good. And that feels supportive and loving. But it's also, as you and I know, because this is why we do this podcast every week, that it feels good to be able to talk about your spirituality with somebody, especially somebody who believes in a similar way as you do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, John, it's very important on every level. And I think we can go it alone longer spiritually because we're not alone. Right. And eventually to grow and evolve, I think that we do need the community.
Right. It's one of the things you said that hit me because it was something I experienced was the large group as opposed to a close-knit friendships, right? Mm-hmm. When I did my comedy sword fighting show years ago, Hack and Slash, overnight I had 3,000 friends on Facebook, right? And still today, I've slowly pared people away. And I still have almost 2,000 friends on Facebook. And it's interesting because I don't know most of them.
Right.
I don't know. I know. I probably know less than 30 or 40 of them, right? Mm-hmm. Really know them from went to school together or something of that nature, mm-hmm. Family, friends, and yet people tend to get on these social medias as their community, and I don't think they're fully getting the experience of community. Mm-hmm. In that sort of situation, because for me, my community is you and my friend Tim, mm-hmm. and my friend Holly, and my brother Jim and my sister Patty, these are the people that I can talk to about pretty much anything. I
Mhm,
don't feel judged. I get to be my full authentic self. And I
mhm,
think the idea of a community really has to be a place where you can truly be yourself and um, express yourself in such a way that people will go, oh, well, that's interesting, and have a conversation with you about it. I mean, we just did an episode last week that was all about broad generalities, and that broad generalities were, you know, was basically knocking out a whole segment of a community
mhm.
potential.
Yeah.
And so when I look at community, I know that I myself am a better person when I have people that I can talk to about topics. Like I know on this podcast, I love this podcast for me personally on a very personal level because of the fact that I get to come here after seeing something that bothers me
Mhm.
and talk to you about it. And to me, that's important because I watch something and I go like last week talking about the broad generalities again. Um, generalizations, not generalities,
Mhm.
but um, when I it was really bothering me. It was like, why can't we just love one another? And being able to come and have my community of Tamara Zoner to talk to and was very, it's good for me.
Mhm.
But then
Mhm.
again, my friend Tim is the same way. My friend Holly is the same way. But I think that each one of us needs to find a place where we can be ourselves. And I think that's what true community does. It allows you to be loved unconditionally.
Does church community do that though? I mean, I didn't feel loved unconditionally by my church as a teenager, exploring who I was. There were a lot of conditions I felt, and I have to say that I did grossly generalize Catholics in the last episode,
Right.
um, from my own experience, right, of 18 years of living and learning as a Catholic.
See,
Um,
I want to call you on that though, because I have heard you say beautiful things about Catholic people.
yeah, I love
So,
a lot of the
so
things.
I don't think you're broadly generalizing. Generalizing. I think you are picking and choosing the certain things you didn't like, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And when I generalize, it's because in general, there were too many restrictions, caveats, and conditions
Yeah.
that I reject, and I reject today because I did not feel unconditionally loved, but I
Right.
do feel unconditionally loved in the community that I've created.
Right.
Right?
Right. Well, so that's a great way of saying it. But basically, what you just said was the church was not your community,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So it literally is finding your community, not
Yeah.
the one that's chosen for you, right?
Right.
Or
And it's
or
funny,
thrust
like
upon you.
church can be great. And I'm not gonna diss church communities
Yeah,
because I lived in Grand
absolutely.
Rapids. And if you know about Grand Rapids, Michigan, in Kent County, there are more churches per capita than even in the Bible Belt than ever anywhere in the US. There's like so many churches in the Grand Rapids area. It's deeply religious. And the first question anybody asks you is, oh, what church do you belong to? You're new
Mhm.
here, right? And I was like, don't. No, I'm not baptizing my children. Um, and so, but there's so much community there, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I think it's wonderful. And I remember sometimes feeling like a little jealous, even like, oh, they have
Right.
this community. And I was new and we moved from Grand Rapids from overseas with our first baby. And I was like, oh, all these people make friends at church. I don't know how to make friends here. So I did what I do. I made my own community. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I went to meetup.com and I created a play group for parents of young children. And we met at the mall once a week, and it was amazing. And that's where I built my community and met one of my dearest, best friends in life who had kids the same ages as mine. And it was like love at first sight. It was like this connection was made. It was like God was there for us. And she doesn't even
Mhm.
believe in God, right? So, but it was in that moment, that was God's presence going, you two are soulmates. And
Mm.
it was really beautiful. So, community is a beautiful, heart opening.
Well, I love what you said. When this thing wasn't your community, you created your community.
Mhm.
I think people need to start looking at the idea of, you know, it's not a polarity. It's not I have to be in that community. or I have to think this way. It's not a black and white sort of scenario.
Mhm.
It literally is someone can go and have a beautiful community experience in a church without a problem.
Mhm.
But spirituality is a personal journey.
Yes.
That's their community. It wasn't your community. Damn sure wasn't mine. Right. Right. It wasn't mine at all. And what I found really interesting is like I did Renaissance Festival for years and years and years and years. And I found a very small select group of people that were kind to my community, but like the entire lifestyle of Renaissance Festival was never my community. I never fit in with the rest of the groups because it didn't resonate, right? But I did it for years because I was making good money and having fun on stage. But the community during the week wasn't for me. And I think that when you start living into your authentic self, the people who resonate with you will surround you if you allow yourself to be visible. And I think that's really the key. Is a lot of people, especially coming out of COVID, they started becoming more themselves at home and not showing themselves to the world.
Right.
They're afraid to get out and put themselves out there.
Yeah,
and
you
I
gotta
think
put pants back on.
right. Speak for yourself. Anyway,
I'm wearing yoga pants right now.
I'm not going to tell
I
you.
don't need to know.
There's a whole line of jokes I could do right now, which I'm not going to do.
Rein it in, John. Rein it in.
Discernment, right? But I think the concept of community really comes down to a place where you feel safe, a place that you feel, and for lack of a better word, rewarded. And I don't want to say rewarded because I don't like the
right. Not like we're throwing prizes at you.
Right.
But that reward is in the connection, right? I did
rewarding as opposed to rewarded.
Yeah, it is rewarding. For senior living, which I worked in for 6 years, I did this. I did a lot of research and I did some talks. And the thing that the research found was that if you're new to a senior community, and I would wager this is true for any community, it will start to feel like home only once you've made at least one personal connection with somebody. Until then, it's just a new place that you live at. But when you make one personal connection and you start to feel like they're your friend, then the whole community starts to feel like home. And listening to you talk about your theater experience and all that time doing your summer festivals and all that good stuff, which were, I'm sure, so much fun. It brought me back to like all the way back to childhood, right? Where do we find community? In our family when we're little. And then as we grow, it's still our family up until about puberty in high school, right? And then our community becomes our peers that we fit with, that we feel are a fit. So for me, it was choir. Choir was my community. Choir and theater. Those were the people where I felt at home. Like if I could have gotten rid of the rest of high school, maybe not English class, because I really liked that. It would have just been the choir and the theater. And those people were my people, though not every single one of them, but as a whole, that was my community. And I always say that like choir and theater saved me, right? And this is one of my kids has gone virtual since COVID hit, and we're sending them back to school in the autumn. My kids are French, so they prefer it when I say autumn and not fall, like the Americans, generalizing. I'm just going to keep bringing that in. And it's because they have no community right now, except for family, but they're 15. Right. They need community. They need to go find their other weirdos, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. They need to be loved for who they are in their
like
group
if
of weirdos.
Mom's your best friend and the one you're going to all the concerts with, like, I love that. I do. Like, I'm so grateful that I have these relationships with my kids. And you're supposed to go mess around and find things out on your own right now in your community. Yeah.
Right.
So
my son is going off to college this year. Yeah. And he is so ready to get away from mom and dad, I think.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I was at that age. Whew.
And it's so interesting because I have a Jeep and it has a hard top, which I take off as soon as it gets 60 degrees, the top is off, and then I have a soft top I use. But in the fall, I put the hard top back on for winter, And the other day he said to me, he says, I don't know what you're going to do come this fall to put that top back on. Because in his mind, he was already off at college and I wasn't going to be around anymore. Right. I'm
Ever.
like, so are you saying that you're never going to come home and see me? Right. Are you saying that we're just done? Is that it? And it comes down to, he's going off and exploring who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And when he goes off and explores who he is, he's going to he's looking for that community.
Yeah.
And I think that getting away from mom and dad helps him find his authentic self and who he truly is.
It does. It's a vital part. Like parents wonder why their teenagers are jerks sometimes, but it's actually how we're built. We're built to push away from that safety source so that we can become our own and find new, so that we can move away from home, right? So that we can move away from family and create our own. It's how we're wired biologically. We're supposed to do that. Your teenagers are supposed to fight with you. I think I might have done something wrong because mine don't want to leave me ever. Great relationships when I'm a little.
You're a horrible mother.
They love to be with me. I've done something wrong.
What have you done, woman? Oh my God. Your children love you? What do you mean your children love you? That's terrible.
Crazy. I was being super grateful last night because my 12-year-old, he'll be 13 in a few months. He still will give me hugs in public and stuff. And I was like, oh, good. I'm still good, right? We're good.
My 18-year-old still calls me daddy.
Oh my gosh, that's the cutest.
Yeah, he calls his mom mommy and me daddy. And my 18-year-old is almost 6'5", right? With a beard.
He's not a little boy.
You say daddy, and I'm like,
to me, you're not even from the South. Huh.
And yet, right. And yet he says he calls me that, but when his friends are around, he talks about his dad.
You're right.
Right. So, which I think is great, but he's still, it's natural for him to call his mommy and daddy at 18 years old. So I think it's, to me, I think that the idea of community comes down to just, being you and having a place to be you and finding people who allow you to be you and allow you to express who you are fully.
Well, and I think that allowing, like that word bugs me a little bit because I feel like, allowing, right? Probably right. It's my own trigger point, but
I get it.
When we allow ourselves to fully be ourselves.
That's what I mean. That's what I meant.
Okay, cool. Then we attract those other people who are who like our vibe, who genuinely like our vibe to us, right? When we like us, we attract people who like us.
Right.
Maybe like us.
and we are conditioned to believe about ourselves what we're told to believe about ourselves at a young age. Mm-hmm. And, for me personally, and this is getting deep into my own stuff, I had very low self-esteem. I had a very low sense of self-worth when I was a kid, because I had an emotionally abusive father who was every so often like to hit too, right? And they defined me, and actually for years and years, his word for me was the worthless bum. He called me that for years, the worthless bum. And it was like, that is a defining thing. And I think that it was very interesting. You talk about community. My best friend, Tim, drugged me to a Renaissance festival. And you said earlier, summer festivals, it was year round. It was there, right? Okay. I travel. I went all over this country. When it was snowing in the north, I was in Florida. Right. Okay. Right. And
I forget that those places exist.
All over the place.
Michigan for a while.
Well, my friend Tim drugged me to a Renaissance festival in Maryland as a spectator. And he said, let's put him in a costume. And he dressed me up as a Viking. Right. And I walked in there and I was in full chainmail armor with a horn helmet and battle axe, and I look like Darien, like the barbarian, right? That was the character name I came up with, Darien the Barbarian. Okay. Right. And it was just a funny character. I instantly wanted to create a funny character. And what I found was, when I got to that festival, walking in there as a big man with a beard and a full suit of armor and all that stuff, I got a lot of positive reinforcement,
Mm-hmm.
and was mad. By the next year, I had my own costume. And by the third year, the entertainment director of the festival, he says, I've seen you out here for 2 years. You need to be in our cast. And then here I was, this kid who was, and I say kid, at that point, I was probably 19, 20 years old.
Okay.
And he brought me into the cast. And suddenly I found myself in a group of really weird people who I liked.
Yeah, I always feel at home with the really weird people.
Right. And they liked me, but I was still so repressed in myself. I mean, when I was my character, I could do anything. But
Yeah.
John Davis was closed off, and finding that community allowed me to come out of that shell and
Mhm.
redefine myself. I think a really good community allows you to redefine yourself.
Yeah. Yes. And I love that coming out of the shell, because that's how I felt about theater too. It was like, there's something special. And I think it's why so many insecure people go into acting, because you get to step outside of your own experience and outside of yourself. And when I was on stage, I wasn't little Tammy whose mom was mentally unstable. No, she's fine. She's on meds.
I could never think of you as a Tammy.
I know I can't either, but
I
that's what they called me.
I
And
hadn't even heard you say that until just now. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
that's
No,
what they, I mean, that's
that's
what they
not
called
right.
me. And it was I wasn't that anymore. And I wasn't my dad still calls me Turtle, which I do love. I totally adopt that term of endearment. But Tammy Turtle, like hiding in your shell kind of a thing. But getting on stage, I was like, oh no, this is really cool. And then I got to be these different characters and put on this different persona and try on the parts that I liked, right? And keep some of them. And then
Right.
like that freed me, it liberated me to be this person. No one ever believes that I was the girl who hid under the table at kindergarten roundup. No one believes that I was shy. I was painfully shy, like crying tears when I was 5 feet away from my mother. So, but when you find community that feels good, you get to, like you said, redefine yourself, or free parts of you that have always been there, but that you've been afraid would be rejected, because now
Right.
they're being accepted.
Right. And I think that really is the key to community, is being accepted and
Mhm.
being part of, it allows you to explore who you are.
Mhm.
And, you talked about the idea of finding the bits and pieces of each character that fit who you were. And really what that did was it kind of let you explore your authentic self.
Yeah.
What does fit? What doesn't fit? And who am I?
Right.
And the more I became my authentic self within that theater community, I started getting more and more opportunities.
Mhm.
People would say, I really think you're a great actor and a combatant, and I'm going to give you all my stage combat training for free, right?
Yeah,
And that happened
that's
to me
amazing.
from two of the top fight directors in the world, right?
Yeah.
Well, then what happened next is I ended up working with the guys who did the fights for Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Highlander. I got to work on a film with Brad Pitt. I got to do all these things.
Yeah.
All these things happened because I was my community helped me bring out my authentic self.
Yeah.
And I think
That is the essence of what a community is meant to do. And again, it changes as we get older and go through different stages in our lives, right? And again, when I came back to Michigan, I again created my own community.
again, again, again.
And I am saying that purposely, because you have to keep trying, right?
Yeah.
You have to keep doing things until you find something that fits or works
Right.
again and again and again. And so I did that because I knew that I wasn't going to go back to church. And I'm in an area that is not quite as liberal as I am. And so I knew that I'd need to put my energy out there so that people could find it and then come to me. Like, that's what I do. I put myself out there and I say, you come to me. I had looked on Meetup for different groups that I felt were a fit. And some of them were, and I joined them, but it never worked out, right? It never was at the right location or the right time, or I was a single mom with 3 kids, right?
Right.
So I made my own. And today it's still going strong. So if you're in Commerce Township or Detroit metro area, you can come and hang out with me once a month on a Saturday.
There you go.
We
Go
meet,
join.
we're
Go.
almost 1,500 members, and it is the place where you can come as you are. And all that's required is an open heart and an open mind.
There you go. That is the best community pitch I've ever heard in my life.
Thank you.
So I think come as you are to Tamara Zoner's community of love.
Community of love.
Community of
Yeah.
love. So Tamara, this has
that
been
can be construed a few different ways.
Ixnay on the porno pay.
It's not that kind of love. Okay.
Lead a comedian to water. Don't expect them to drink. All right. Well, this has been a lovely conversation about community. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I love talking about community, and I love being in community, and I love creating community.
There you go. So why don't you take us out of this puppy?
All right. We want to thank you for being a part of our community, Spirit Cafe listeners and viewers. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your communities with us. Maybe someone listening or watching and checking out the YouTube video is like, I'm looking for some community, and you just might be their community. Be willing to put yourself out there. Be courageous. Be yourself. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will talk to you again next week. Bye.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Please leave all comments on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page or beneath our videos on YouTube.